Thanks.
to have
Thanks
a
so much,
conversation, a discussion.
Roberto and Malik. There have been a few questions, and I actually just want to invite anyone who's comfortable to come on camera so that we can feel like a community and see each other and discuss these questions. I'm going to have even the questions that have been answered in the chat, I want to have them on the recording. So Lauren, I don't know if you're comfortable asking your first question about other devices.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. This is such an interesting device. I try to keep notes of circumstances, like what might have triggered. Well, now I think it's hormones for my son, which is a little hard to track, but it's like dietary things and just any kind of trigger. So it's great to have like a system to do that in a consistent way. That'll be really helpful. And I have wondered too, because my son takes his meds not always, like sometimes there's like a 2 or 3 hour even the gap in the morning, and so that'll be interesting to track that. It's a little hard now because he's 12 and he I don't always know when he takes them. I just give them to him. He takes a liquid form of Keppra and another pill, and so I'll have to keep closer tabs on him so I know. But I was wondering if the all those little triggers that you have where you click the little circle, can you customize that? Yeah,
I can.
okay.
I mean, I at the moment I can. It means give me any feedback and I will do my best.
Okay.
For me, it's quite easy. By the way, I didn't mention, but MirrorHR is available for free on the Apple Store.
Yeah, I'm gonna go install it right now. Thank you.
One of the beauty of being a foundation. I mean,
great.
Between us, sleep and helping those kids, it's all right. That's why it's there. Sorry, I forgot to mention, but you can download, you can try, and please share any feedback.
Yeah.
Customize those things, it's easy for me at the moment. It requires some time, of course, because publishing it on the store requires a few days, but it's easy. Where I would love to go, it might still require some work, will be to offer not only to the parents the opportunity to customize, but my dream is to offer the same opportunity to the doctors together with the parents. It still takes some time, okay?
Thank you.
I'm still mostly a parent. Let's set the right expectation. But it's doable, and definitely we will do it, period.
That's great. Thank you so much to both of you for sharing your kids' story.
Lauren, send me an email with the kind of scenario. And then usually, thanks God, I have families that are helping me to prioritize and to understand how it can be better.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I will. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So Malik, can you just say what else you had tried and why sort of movement sensors didn't work for Ivy?
I think everyone's seen some of those ones that are advertised where it's a proprietary wrist type device where you put it on, and it mostly detects movement. So a lot of tonic-clonic, and it has to be pretty exaggerated movements in all honesty for the movement to catch. Even seizures, we saw in the video, he just has this one seizure and he does this, and then he comes back down, goes to sleep. That was never picked up because he doesn't have the shaking back and forth in the majority of the seizures. He does have tonic-clonics, but not all the time. So the one thing we found was, especially because he had a VNS implanted, the VNS works off a heart rate. So the VNS will send a spike simulate or electrical impulse to the brain when the heart rate hits a certain peak. And we thought, and when, to me, that made perfect sense with it bridged that that device discussion of, okay, what's the best way? Well, VNS works off a heart rate. And I know that Roberto's and the team's MirrorHR works off a heart rate. That was the best thing that we're creating. It's been consistent. I've watched when he had heart rate spikes and have a seizure. So it's for us, it's almost 100%. So I know when he's having a seizure, it's when his heart rate hits.
Can I add one thing? Because this is an interesting question. Please let me share my perspective. First of all, there are not enough technology or support on epilepsy yet. Okay. I would love to have hundreds of options. And of course, everyone might be specific. Some works in some cases, some not. Our perspective was the following. The first is that we tried as well what Malik said, but it didn't work. Digging in, we found that is the heartbeat the only event during a seizure? No. But when I say this, the cheapest one to be detected, what it means is that we believe that the best way is to have consumer-grade devices able to do as much as possible. And you might say, why? Because when something goes wrong or a device is broken or whatever it is, in 24 hours, you can have a new one. And you don't have to wait months to have a new one. This is something that or you live with the issue or you don't understand. And when we saw that the Apple Watch, but it's not the only one, even the Polar can do, but consumer grade devices are becoming reliable. We say that that's a path that we want to explore because it will make us free to have more options. And that's why we started from the iPhone and the Apple Watch. As I said, the heartbeat is not the only event. And it doesn't work in 100%. And we are not here to tell you the things. But it seems that it works in 70% of the times. And in these cases, having a consumer-grade device, even an old device or something that is becoming cheaper and cheaper available across the globe in 24 hours, for us was a very good advantage, or at least worth enough to go for the path that you see us being here. But as I said, I would love to have many other options as well. There are not so many. In Europe, there is a very expensive device in the Nordics that it works exactly on the same way, but it costs $2,000. Another thing that we didn't like versus the commercials that you see is that some of those devices are positioned as a kind of magic artificial intelligence toolbox. No one in the world has enough data to train a real machine learning able to detect seizures. Even the ones who are saying we can predict, we work in technology. No one has enough data yet, unfortunately. But I would love that even through the diary that I showed you, and in fully respect of the privacy, this could be the beginning of starting to collect real data. Just to give you an idea, 1 week of sleep, it means we can have 60,000 data point for kid. That's when I say, let's work all together, because we might have the opportunity to create the first open database of those kind of data where technology could do something more.
So I see a question coming in from Maggie. Are you able to ask it?
Mara, if you may, I want to say something from the scientific side of what we're talking about here. It's really, really hard to ever emulate the home conditions in the hospital. So even when we put the kids on the units on recording for many, many days, does not tell us what happens at home. And it's absolutely true that we don't have yet, because of the rarity of the different conditions and the variability between each kid at different times of brain development from the home environment. So these, which are first steps, are the absolutely necessary ones to really develop that knowledge and that understanding, and these data points that we're talking about are, we really believe there is it's an invaluable and not otherwise replicable situation, which is recording when the kid is doing their regular life. And we have DigiTrace and we have these things and we send them with these helmets. I can tell you what those look like. They're not great. So I think participating will be something very important, and running this against the other kind of tools that we have to validate the data points is what they're doing, and is the next step.
Yeah.
Just wanted to echo these difficulties we have ourselves.
And Pat, thank you for this, because that's you see, my brain is split in two. From one side, I'm a parent and I'm desperately looking for something. From another side, I'm trying really to create alliances with doctors like Pat, because I believe that's the only way to make something happen. Okay, and that's even in MirrorHR, you see, it's like if there are those two sides of the same thing, the way to collect the data and to share with the doctors, and the need that we have at least to sleep and to reduce the stress in our life. Yeah, you know, but the dream is exactly what Pat said, is to complement all those data, the EEG and all those things that happens at the hospital, from when you are a newborn in the ICU, ECU, as you say in US, up to when you are a young adult that finally goes to live alone, and you can do it safe. That's will be amazing. Anyway, I see another question in the chat. Mara, help me, because I think we are missing some, but
well, Maggie was just going to ask hers about her son.
Yeah, how old is he, Maggie? Because we have children 4 years old, 3 years old, but the tricky part is that of course they are too small to wear the watch on the wrist, and that's why, oh, help me with my English, in the
on the ankles, on their feet,
grazie.
on ankles, yeah, on their ankles.
Yeah. Oh, another funny part of the Apple Watch is that you know, you can customize the screen of the Apple Watch, and so some kids are putting or a puppy or an emoji or the picture of their parents, because at the end it helps them to sleep at night, and that's another of the beauty of having a consumer grade device. Someone are wearing it under the socks. Someone are wearing it. The key point is that it has to be in contact with the skin.
Aiden uses nylons, so I've cut my nylons. So he wears a nylon and wears a watch over the nylon.
Yeah, but what surprised me, and actually I didn't think a couple of years ago, was that he's becoming a modern puppy to sleep with. And that's why the symbol of MirrorHR is a shield, because with Mario 2 years ago we created the shield for him, because MirrorHR was protecting him, and he believed on this, and that's why he becomes the shield that protects the kids and the family.
Yeah, same thing with Aiden. Is it's that comfort level. He's 13, almost 14, so we talk about hormones, but he's comfortable going to bed. He puts it on. He brings me his phone. So I have the phone next to me. He sets it all up. So I don't even have to set anything up, because now he's learned how to do it. So he sets it up, goes, go to bed, Mom. And off he goes to bed, and I can kind of watch it from there. And once in a while, something's wrong, or he didn't charge his watch during the day, so it's dead. So he's like, I can't sleep in the bed, Mom, because you can't check on me. I'm going to come sleep with you. So to him, that this thing has given that independence that he's needed for a while.
Oh, another couple of questions that I see. Keep in mind that the connectivity between the watch and the iPhone works through Bluetooth and through Wi-Fi. I mean, in US, you have quite big houses, so I will recommend to check, you know, compared to Italy, your houses are so much bigger, no? But take care, because you need to consider usually until 10-15 meters, it's okay. It's much better to have the watch and the iPhone connected to the same Wi-Fi, because it's much more reliable and you can be a bit further. Sometimes still the kids sleep in some way that the signal might not land, and that's why you might receive the no data notification. I was discussing with a mother yesterday, because she said, but why are we receiving the the no data notification, because I mean, you need to know if everything is working well or not. But there are so many things that we can still improve.
Patty, do you want to chime in on the other part of Maggie's question? So if a child had seizures in the NICU and then has had one as a 3 or 4-year-old, would it still be worth setting up something like this for the case if more seizures come?
So I think for most kids with perinatal stroke, so we know that of the kids that have perinatal stroke, so stroke around the time of birth or before birth, we have around 40% of these patients, depending on what cohort you look at and who published, you get from 25 to 40% of those babies are going to develop seizures later on, beyond the time in the NICU. If they are having frequent seizures, I definitely think this is a system that provides the benefits that we've been discussing during the workshop. If they have only sporadic seizures, you may want to keep an eye on it. Like you may want to try it and see, but I wouldn't go for like, I need to be monitoring, because that will create a different type of problem, which is an anxiety that may not be necessary. Meaning that seizures that happen beyond the infantile time may be the only ones he or she are going to have. So I would recommend this, and mostly in these early stages that we are collecting data for those kids that are suffering reasonably frequent seizures, even if they are like once a week or once a month, but they're consistently returning and having seizures despite being on medications or while they're being adjusted on their medications. I think this tool could give the parents some information. And I think it's very important that you approach your doctors and say, we're part of this group, we're trying to build something. Not every doctor will be open and have time to participate, might beyond the willingness to do it or not. But I would always have the conversation with the doctors and say, we may have, instead of with what we think was a seizure and a video or something, we also will come with what we think is a heart rate when they're having a seizure for you to review next visit. So give them a heads up that you're signing up to be part of this project and this research, so that they also can participate as well, give their input, say what they think about it. I would say one thing that is very important. We have this with apneas for babies with prematurity or with a stroke, perinatal. So the maturity of those controls of respiratory centers can be a little bit not yet there when the babies have to leave the hospital. And some babies go home with these apnea monitors. Absolutely necessary for certain babies that otherwise we do not get to realize that they are stopping breathing, and we need to stimulate them so they can, or change the medication regimen. Most of the families that go home with an apnea monitor, they torture themselves and the child, because more than 70% of the alarms had nothing to do with anything. So you're basically putting yourself at a level of alert. And that's why these, and those are like hospital grade apnea detectors. So always with a grain of salt is what kind of information are you trying to obtain? And is it gonna serve a change in management? If not, I don't see obtaining information for obtaining it at this point in time as a recommended thing to do. So I think I open it up a little bit more than maybe the specific question, but I want people to know that home monitors are not the solution to anything. They are just one more piece of information to have.
Thanks. I think this next question that Lacey asked, Lacey, are you able to come on camera and ask it? Might also be directed at Patty.
Hi. Yeah, so my daughter, I mean, she started having seizures when she was 7. She's now 10. She had an event where her heart stopped, so we were able to get her a pulse ox, which has been like a relief for us. But would something like, if this is reading her heart rate and we're not seeing any spikes in her heart rate with the pulse ox, I mean, is this something that you would still suggest for her? Because her EEG has like noted that she is having seizures a lot when she's asleep. So, you know, like we've been trying to get them under control. They've been really bad this past year, and we haven't really had much luck. So I'm just kind of looking for other ways to maybe support her. And
I will add to Pat, of course, because she's a doctor and much better than me. My point is that the diary is still helpful. That will be my point. Keeping track on the things. I don't care if you use the app or paper or whatever it is, but keeping the diary for me is something that it's helpful in any case. Of course, as Pat said, without, you know, we still a good sense. No.
Yeah, we keep a, not as, we don't do it as well at home, but her school keeps a really good log of her seizures that occur at school. But we're, you know, like we're always wondering what's going on at night or why she's so sleepy. I mean, she's 10 years old. She has a rare genetic condition. She still naps a couple times a day, usually, because we know that her brain is in constant.
So let me do my best. So I, not knowing the case, and you guys know we're not giving medical recommendations here. We're trying to troubleshoot and provide, empower you to think through the problems, ask the questions to your providers, and bring new ideas to them too. So depending on what type of seizures they have, there will be a different response of the heart. Not all seizures are correlated with tachycardia. And you're mentioning something that you might have observed that already, that the pulse ox doesn't say that her heart rate is higher when she's having seizures. Okay, right. So that's a really important observation that you already have. Whether there are other kinds, usually when kids are having frequent seizures, not all seizures are the same kind. So there might be different type of seizures that are important to know. Also sleep patterns on kids with epilepsy, and depending on what genetic condition we are talking about, may be informative in other ways, not just for the seizure, but to know if they're resting or not, because they are doing these sleep cycles at all or not. I would say what you have a question is she seizing more at night that I really am aware of? And is there any changes in medications that could be offered if we had that information? I would ask exactly that to the epilepsy or neurologist that is following her. And I would also I would imagine that when they adjust medications, they might also want to repeat the EEGs. And if the seizures happen during these prolonged EEGs, another way to answer the question is to wear it while she's having an EEG in the hospital, talk to the doctors and start seeing if you can find any correlations. It could become a useful tool if you find with the gold standard, which is when we can capture the seizures from the brain activity on the EEG, if it has any sort of correlation. It could be lower heart rate instead of high heart rate.
Yeah, she definitely, I mean, the EEGs, you know, I know that we're not always able to, like, not everybody can get that data when they're in the, you know, when they have an EEG, but her last one was last April and they captured 28, so a significant amount. And we see visibly, you know, at least 10 a day, but we also been told like her brainwave pattern is just so abnormal.
So in that EEG that you have, we capture the heart rate, the EKG. So it's always recorded. It's one way to start the question, that it's answering your question is, could this provide anything extra? If in that EEG, the heart rate has any correlation with the seizures, up or down, important to know. My understanding is if it's not up, this may not alarm, okay? So it might not be your app, but you're still collecting the data, which may allow for you to see a graph that then allows you to say, okay, rested, not rested, this is what we see. But I would start with like understanding what her seizures do to her heart rate. That would be important. Understanding what the app can do or not do in terms of alarms, because that way you don't expect something to let you know something that it's not going to do, because it's going to react to high, but not to low.
Actually, it does. So, sorry, Patty, it does. Alarms both, yeah, up and down.
Okay, so you can put the range. I remember, no, like you can. Okay, so that's great, but you have to learn and find out your range. And the one part that I will completely agree with you guys is it's really hard to keep track of things. You probably are dealing with just the care of not only the kid, but yourself, the house, the medications they need, the other needs they have.
Still having a job.
Yeah, it's absolutely overwhelming. Not only that, you're doing that with probably a very decreased capacity intellectual of yourself, because you are not sleeping and you're exhausted for days and months at a time. So if at all, having something as handy as your phone and having something that easily allows you to record comments, little video, even your own like thoughts. Remember that not everything you record here is shared. So I think I've been playing with it, and you can choose whatever you want to share or not share. So you can have it for yourself. If you see any role on that into easing the, do I know if she's easing or not? I can't remember. I can't remember if I gave her the medications. Whatever of those functionalities the app has, try it, see if it works, see if it helps. But for the question is, could it be helpful for the night? It could, but we have to first find out, are the seizures being correlated with any changes in heart rate? And what kind of changes are those? And is there a range? Sometimes things are all over the place. It's not easy to track. I still think if there is a tracing of that heart rate throughout the hours that you can bring to the doctors, I personally would like to see it. Like in the sense of like, maybe I learned something I did not know, or another idea of how the seizures are being triggered. Sometimes the heart rate changes not at the time of the seizures, but a few minutes before, when there is an aura, when there is something that is predisposing for the seizure to occur.
There is one thing, Pat, that we are studying now, and is, that there are elements that you cannot control in order to have an alarm, but still you can read those data. For example, the saturation. Now we're working with the HRV, the heart rate variability, and the respiratory rate. I mean, those are things that we cannot use to fire an alarm.
But they're collected. But
at least we can start to read them and overlay and start to see if there are correlations. Yeah,
and another note of caution that was mentioned before is the devices have been pretty good at performing for primarily adult and bigger children. When you're going to very young, we might have a lot of failures on the device itself because they're not being standardized for that kind of body habitus, that thickness of skin. There's a lot of variabilities that are changing when we go very young. So also keep it, share it, what you're seeing before interpreting yourself. You can interpret it yourself too, but sharing it with your provider would be probably the best way to go at it. Is this data that is helpful, or is not telling us much, and therefore I don't need the data? Maybe I want the app for the diary, I want the app for the med reminders. I find some usefulness in it, but it's not from the alarm perspective. Does it answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Very long.
I know it's a confusing question. She's a pretty unique kid. I mean, I know a lot of our kids that suffer with seizures, but definitely rare disease really trumps things for her.
Absolutely. And this is the other advice is I don't know exactly what this is we're talking about, but they're probably a community that also is learning about the disease and trying to kind of catch up with the needs that the families have. We always encourage families to try to join those communities. If they are not, form one. Start your own. We work with a lot of rare disease communities, and there is nothing like really learning together, like in a way, because they're so rare that there is no like a textbook where you go to know what is going to happen next and how do you deal with this and what exactly is what. Sometimes it's even that the question is this is the disease or this is just the kid being sick. So I encourage you to, and probably you're doing it, form community, participate on as much as possible to the closest you can to the condition that your daughter has.
If I can add one thing, and that's another of the learnings that we had, is that in those communities, try to focus not on what cannot be done, but try to focus on what can be done. I mean, we have a large network of parents here, and we notice that you know, the tendency sometimes, especially at the beginning where we are under a lot of stress, is to look only at the things that cannot be done. But if you open a second, and if you are able to switch and you can focus on what can be done, I mean, there are so many things that can be done, so many things. And that's where we are trying to put all our energy, because otherwise, as you said, as Patty said, it is one of the most complex things in the world, period. But until we look just from this perspective, we will not make any progress. Instead, if we can shift a bit and change the perspective, I believe we can do together, we can do some of those things.
That's a beautiful, hopeful note to end on. I want to thank Roberto and Malik again, and remind everyone our next event is in March, actually March 18th, and it's on adaptive sports and activities. And really our whole educational series is founded on the premise of doing what we can. So we can always learn more. We can always try new things. We can always learn from each other, connect with each other, and share what we're learning. So I thank everyone for participating and welcome you to come back again in a month.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.